You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts.
All right, Black and White Sports supporters. Well, somebody in my comment section brought this up on the Paige Becker's video just a few minutes ago. When I was going through and reading the comments, bringing up the amount of time there's going to be between March 10th, if they get a deal done, and I touched on this a hair earlier, and the fact that it's going to be like 2 or 3 weeks even before they start any kind of league business, because there's going to be attorneys involved. It's going to be pretty much sort of a paperwork mess for about 2 weeks. And I found this article that just came out from The Athletic, and I thought it was rather interesting because it's going to give people an insight into how big of a mess this is going to be, even after they get this deal done. If they hope to start the season on time, the amount of things they are about to cluster into one group is pretty wild, to be honest with you. And on top of it, this is a league that's been notorious for looking and feeling extremely disorganized over the years anyway. Some people might call it Bush League, right? We all know what that's Bush League. You know, I've said before, you've heard me say it. There's times where the WNBA feels very AA baseballish. All right? I don't even want to say AAA. I've seen, like, when it comes to television broadcasts, forget about it. There's AAA broadcasts that are better than most non-WNBA national telecasts there are on TV. And one could argue the NBA TV broadcasts aren't very good either. Let's get to this. March 10th, drop dead date. This is the date an agreement would need to be reached, not the date the ink has to be dried on signatures. To get to work, this date gives both sides less than 2 weeks from today to come to an agreement on revenue sharing, housing, minimum standards, roster construction rules, all of the other priorities the league and the players have laid out throughout the CBA process. Once a term sheet is in place, lawyers from each side would get to work codifying the specifics of the agreement, and the owners and players would have to vote to ratify it. It's unclear why this specific date was chosen by the league, but it tracks with information from a source in broadcasting who was granted anonymity to speak on the issue. The source said a few weeks would be needed to clear television time slots and windows for early season games. So that's why they gave them the March 10th date for television broadcast. Makes sense. If you lose your TV broadcast, you're cooked. The league is cooked. March 31st, a signed contract. Even with a handshake on March 10th, it would likely take about 3 weeks for the lawyers to get everything done and for an agreement to be signed. It's important to note that in the time between the handshake and the agreement, everything would remain in status quo and the moratorium would remain in place that would prohibit free agency transactions. Furthermore, franchises couldn't trade college draft picks, so no one should expect too much news during this time. You also got to remember that you got FIBA qualifiers in there, by the way. On April 1, Portland and Toronto would receive the protected players list. All right, that's the players that the league, the teams across the league are going to want to keep versus the ones they're willing to let go in a draft. All right, so that would be April 1st. April 3rd through the 5th, the Final Four and National Championship. The WNBA wants to avoid scheduling major attention-seeking events during college basketball's marquee weekend. So, in other words, they don't want to compete with the NC2A for news. Don't blame them. Because if you've seen those ratings on national TV, WNBA don't stand a chance, to be honest. April 6th, expansion draft. Toronto and Portland, you're on the clock, finally. So we're talking 6 weeks from now before there would be an expansion draft. April 7th through 11th, pre-agency. The pre-free agency period kicks off 12:01 Eastern on April 7th with a designation period. This is when teams extend qualifying offers to reserves and restricted free agents, as well as potentially apply the core tag to eligible unrestricted free agents. The WNBA has proposed eliminating the core designation, but assuming it remains, this is when front offices will decide who their core players are. This period typically lasts 10 days, but it would likely condense to 2 or 3 days in an expedited timeline. After the designation period, teams can start negotiating with free agents, another stretch that is supposed to last 10 days. However, expect the negotiating window could be truncated. April 12th, free agency would start. So free agency opens, signings can be official. Free agency will involve more than 100 players. What makes me wonder, the 7th through the 11th period, well, I mean, surely these teams, I mean, in the NFL, they have what they call a tampering period. And honestly, the tampering period happens before the tampering period opens. Because as soon as the tampering period opens, you start finding out guys are signed. It's like the tampering period started 30 seconds ago and 7 guys have already signed with new teams. I will say this, it's a really interesting period for the NFL. And these other sports, I think the NBA does a pretty good job of it too. Make things very interesting. The college draft would be April 13th. And then that's wild because, check this out, 6 days later, April 19th, WNBA camps would start. April 25th, preseason games begin. By the way, less than 2 months from now. Less than 60 days from right now. Basically. About 60 days. Let's call it 63 days, 62 days. And then the regular season starts on March 8th. So there you have it. I mean, just because they get an agreement, handshake agreement done, you got to wait 2 to 3 weeks before they can start conducting any actual business. And now we know the television broadcast, I guess they must have came to Adam Silver and said, look, you run the risk of WNBA games losing time slots now and windows to other sporting events. And Adam Silver was like, well, bleep it. We got to give a drop dead date now. No choice. No choice. And the players surely have heard this as well. They don't sign a deal. They don't get paid either. Anything. Tell me what you think. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.